Good evening, everybody. Welcome to another edition of Azure Thursday. This is the April 2021 edition. I'm here calling in from the Netherlands together with Jorrit. Hi, Jorrit. How are you doing?
Hello, I'm good. Thank you.
Okay, nice. So this month, we have 4 speakers over 3 sessions for you. So we have a packed evening. And at the end of the night, we'll have a giveaway for the people who registered through the link we shared in the previous edition. So stay tuned until the end, so you can find out if you want some awesome prizes.
That's a giveaway for the Azure Live VIP package. Yeah.
Right. All right. So our first speaker for today will be Jonah Anderson. Let's invite her to the stream. Hi, Jonah.
Hi. Hi, everyone. Yes, great to be here. Thank you for inviting me to speak.
Sure, it's nice to have you. How are you?
I'm good, and I'm saying hi and hey to all the viewers that are watching us live today.
Cool. So I have a question for you. Yeah. You've started ramping up your public speaking. We've seen you started a YouTube channel. Right before the stream, you were telling us you have some other stuff going on. Tell us about it. How's it going?
It's doing great, actually. It's keeping me busy on the side of my full-time job as a software developer, and I really enjoy sharing knowledge and through public speaking, and also mentoring that I do on the side, because it doesn't just help me develop my skills in Azure and as a developer, but I also enjoy inspiring others to inspire more. So it's great. So April has been a full booked month for me, but it's awesome. More opportunities, and I'm glad to be here.
Well, I guess we're glad to have you, right? And yeah, you mentioned something about being a mentor as well. We know that you are a big supporter of gender equality, and that you also mentor other females in the tech business. To go out more, to be more of a public speaker, maybe to be more in the community. Well, we are obviously always looking for great speakers. So maybe you can hook us up next time with someone from your network that likes to do a session over here.
Yes, definitely. That's a great idea. I'll keep that in mind, and I'll let you know. I have a few people that might be interested. So that's great.
Yeah, that would be great. Right, thanks. So yeah, about your session today, you will be speaking about migrating .NET applications to the Azure cloud. How to be successful at it, and what not to do. Probably a lot of stories there. So yes. Yeah, we want to give you all the time that you need. So if you're ready, we're ready, and you can take the stage.
Yes, thank you. All right. So hi everyone. Thank you for tuning in, and today we'll be talking about things to consider when migrating your old .NET applications to the cloud. And this story, or this talk, is based on my real-life project, Azure Migration project. So as an overview, I will be discussing about that project, Azure Migration project that I went through a few years ago, and the lessons that I learned from that project, and good to have Azure Migration resources that you could use at the end of the session if you're considering moving your systems to the cloud. And as an introduction about myself, I am Jonah Anderson. I am a software developer at Forefront Consulting. Forefront Consulting is an IT consulting company based in Sweden with 400 employees in 6 offices in the country. So I am a full stack developer that codes mainly C#.NET, and very passionate about developing and learning Microsoft Azure technologies. And aside from my full-time job, on my free time, I do mentoring, and also public speaking by sharing my knowledge in hands-on projects by public speaking through Tech Talks. And as for mentoring, I mentor different several young women to choose a career in tech and helping them out with different things in programming, advices, and all mentoring related stuff. And I'm involved in, I'm part of our Girl Code, which is a London-based women in tech community. And also here in Sweden, I'm part of mentoring members from Adaptation and guidance. And recently I've started an Azure user group in my area in Sundsvall, Sweden, because I noticed that we have some good IT companies here, but there weren't any Azure user groups. So even though right now I'm alone in that user group, but I created it with a motivation and a hope that it will grow as a good Azure community locally. And on my free time, I like reading books, play chess, and spend time dog training with my Belgian Malinois dog, Jackson. So let me start my talk by showing you this cartoon cartoon series, which I first encountered while I was studying Agile System Development here in Sweden. So while studying Agile System Development for a few years, I encountered this picture, and I thought the picture were just series of cartoons with different images in it. But after working for several years as a software developer, working in different projects, I realized that this series of images makes sense to me, because this image describes the reality of the projects that we have in software development, not just software development, but in any type of projects. So this means that in every image, it illustrates that every project team members can illustrate the system requirements or a feature differently. For example, a customer wanted to have a feature in a system, and he or she described it in a certain way, but we programmers probably misinterpret it and interpret it and build the system or that feature differently. So I'm sure that some of you have seen this picture and can relate to this as well. And this is the reality that we have. And in order to solve this reality in software development projects is that we combine our different ideas and do a collaboration, so at the end of the project, we make something that what really customer needs. And I wanted to share this because my Azure migration project is kind of like this. It kind of like illustrate this way. And the project was about that I was involved with for a few years ago was to move an existing application to the cloud. And I was the main person that were responsible in moving that project to the cloud. And why do we want to move that system to the cloud? It's because first, the existing system is in .NET, and we have our data in SQL databases. And also we know that Azure had a lot of great services and benefits that could help us in our existing functionalities in the system. And the project, it is actually a project that is already, it's a at least 15-year-old system that is already running in production that has active users. So initially I was working in that project as a software developer and maintaining that system, fixing bugs, fixing new features, and adding developments in that. So that was the project, and the team were not actually the typical Agile team in which it's composed of 3 to 5 members maybe. But the team that I had for that system was was pretty small. Actually, I was the only developer in that team, and there was a project manager, and there was a colleague, another software developer that I could collaborate and talk and pair programming sometimes when I need help. And we had a plan. So we planned on moving that existing application to the cloud. And the existing application looks like this. So it wasn't a 15-year-old, about 15-year-old ASP.NET monolithic architecture application, which was in .NET 4.7 framework. And the data were in Microsoft SQL Server, and the reporting services were, the reporting was also in SQL Server. And it was a typical monolithic on-premise system in which we have the Windows servers, the database server, the web server, and all the environments were in separate servers. But then it was pretty old. It was like Windows 2008 R2. And at that time, there was an update released by Microsoft that they would stop supporting Windows 2008 R2, and there wouldn't be any security updates. So because of that update, because of that information that we received, we were determined to try to move our on-premise system and try to migrate it to the cloud. And our plan is to use Microsoft Azure, and as much as possible, keep it ASP, use the same code base like ASP.NET, and use Azure Web App Services, and move the existing database or data into Azure SQL Server, Azure SQL, and then upgrade the reporting to Power BI. So that was our plan. And the cloud migration journey that we had went through different paths and alternatives. So the first path that I tried to do is to lift and shift this system into Azure VMs as an infrastructure as a service. But that first option was not the right one for us. It's because it was Windows 2008 R2, and based on the research that I did, or that we did at that time, that version is not really compatible with the Azure VM that time, like years ago. So, and then the organization thought that it was too expensive and time consuming and too complicated to do the lift and shift, because the servers or the VMs were hosted in a different third-party company. So it's kind of like complicated and expensive. So we changed our plan and switched to alternative path. We decided to rehost. So we updated our .NET framework tried to update it from 4.7 to 4.8 to be able to rehost it in an app service, and also try to export and import the database from SQL Server to Azure SQL as a platform as a service. And that didn't work either. So we did the lift and shift, we did the rehost and updating to app service as a pass. So what we did is lastly we tried the last resort. So we went back and tried to start as new, so which means that instead of updating to just .NET framework and everything and do refactoring, we started a new project and decided to use a .NET Core and rehost it in Azure using the services that we decided to do. So that project went for months actually, but it was a sole developer project because in parallel of doing the Azure migration project, I also had to maintain the existing system that's in production. So I did technical support, I did bug fixing, I did development. So it was two parallel jobs for one person, and To make the long story short, after several months of hard work, that project didn't make it to production. And the main reason for that is that even though we were moving forward, and I thought it was very exciting that we're moving forward with the .NET Core starting as new, it didn't make it to the production because the organization, the clients, or the stakeholders thought that it would take so much financial investment and money to invest on that migration to cloud project. And also the leadership of that organization were not mature enough to move to the cloud. And of course, being the only person that were cloud ready in the team and even in the organization was not easy. So it was a big project that a too big project for a one woman project, one woman resource. So that didn't make it, and I thought personally, I thought that that project was a fiasco because it just didn't make it to production, and I did my best, but it affected me personally, how I feel and how I feel at the work. So instead of me, the first person is very happy and excited about helping the system to move up to the cloud like a superwoman, I ended up 404, which means that I got stressed because it was too much work to do, too big project, and I personally realized that I was working too hard and working alone, and it was not easy to do it alone. So what I did is that I noticed that the system is not moving forward, and I wasn't developing as a developer. So what I did is I actually quit that job in that organization, and I took over a month break, and I spent some free time for myself, and even spent time enjoying life with my dog, Jackson, who's a very happy dog. So I'm a person that likes to reflect so much, and I took a break and did a reflection on what went wrong in that project. So I gathered some facts, and I realized that it's just not in life or in school that we learn lessons. We also learn lessons from our projects, regardless if it's small project, big project, simple project, or complicated project. We learn lessons from them. So I jot down all the top 12 lessons that I learned, and I thought that I would share with you. And the first lesson that I learned that is also very important is to carefully plan your cloud migration. This means that we need to identify or define our cloud migration strategy, not just as a team, but also as an organization, and also a strategy that we can work together with our clients or our users. And we need to do our homework first before we just move to the cloud. We need to ask questions. Is it worth it to move to the cloud? And we need to carefully study the business requirements and also learn how your existing system or IT infrastructure works. Because if you're not well aware how your system works and the infrastructure works, it will be hard to plan the architecture that you want to build in the cloud. For example, in that system migration project that I was working on, it was an old system that were not well documented, and there were several developers that sat on it and coded the code base or coded the system in their own style. So it was kind of a messy system, but I was pretty positive to move it to the cloud. So I learned that it is important that we know our business requirements and we know how we create our infrastructure based on the needs of our users. And of course, research the practical facts because it is important. And next lesson that I learned is that we need to fix technical debt first, which means that we don't want to bring the bugs into the cloud. So old tech, scrappy data, it needs to be fixed first. And we need to clean up outdated and old dependencies, because it's not good to have those things in the cloud. And also, we don't rush up flying up to the cloud with your tech debt. So these things are very important to consider before you do the first step of clicking the button and move it. And it's just like this quote that a goal without a plan is just a wish. So this is a very good quote that I thought I would share. And lesson 3, choose the right services. So aside from choosing the right cloud provider, for example, in our case, we chose Microsoft Azure. It's also important to choose the right cloud services. For example, there are a lot of cloud deployment models that we can choose from. For infrastructure as a service, we have virtual machines, which is pretty common for the lift and shift strategy. And there's also containers if you want to do microservices or container architecture. And there's also serverless, like Azure functions as a service. So there are different options, including the web app service, which is also a powerful platform as a service. So it is important to choose the right cloud services and infrastructure in your cloud migration. And this is a good illustration that I found on Microsoft Learn. It is a lift and shift documentation for existing apps. For example, if you move it to Azure as an infrastructure as a service. So there are different maturity levels. So here, for example, is an existing apps, and then here we have the same thing that we tried to do in that project to migrate and rehost. But as you move to the right, and the more you modernize your system, the more the higher level of maturity you want to adopt to the cloud, the more you need to consider your architecture and your code base. So this is a good illustration about the maturity levels. And lesson 4, we need to be prepared to be cloud ready, which means that it's not just the developers or me as a software developer's responsibility to learn more about the cloud. Cloud transformation starts within us also, and also the leadership within our organization. So it is very important that we have the cloud knowledge and expertise upon moving to the cloud. And once we have that expertise, the cloud knowledge, then we can build our Cloud Heroes team and implement our strategy for that plan. So cloud readiness is very important. And lesson 5 that I learned, educate, inspire, and be transparent, which means that we need to inspire cloud to our coworkers, to our team, to our organizations, and even our clients. And then we also need to educate our others and our clients about security, because based on my experience and what I've heard, many people or many organizations are worried or concerned about moving to the cloud because of security issues, security concerns. They're not sure if their data or the system will be secured over the internet. So as cloud developers or cloud technologies, we need to inspire and educate our clients and organizations that there are cloud services or Azure security services that can comply and fulfill the need for security in our system. And also choosing right Azure services. This means that we don't need to follow the trend. We need to choose the right services based on the business requirements that we have for our users. So this means that if you heard from other organization, oh, it's a trend to work with containers, with serverless. Yeah, that's great. You can learn from them, but you need to create a line of, you need to create an Azure infrastructure, a cloud infrastructure based on what your system needs and what your user needs. And we also need to be transparent about Azure costs. So before moving to the cloud, we need to evaluate how much would it cost us to move and get or acquire the services in Azure. And this also means that we are also transparent with our clients, so we cannot just charge them with different services. And lesson 6, the 4S. I called it the 4S because it's a good S. This means, but a very important one. This means that we need to start small with small steps. So, for example, when we decided to move that .NET to start us new in that .NET Core application, we decided to start small by first fixing the login and designing the database tables for that. So we had to start small. So it is important to do the small stuff instead of creating a big step and then you cannot comply it or you cannot do it. So the 4S is also worth considering for. And then lesson 7, choose the best data migration strategy. So data migration is one of the things that many are also concerned about when it comes to cloud migration. So this means that when you're planning your cloud migration, it's important to identify how you want to store your data in the cloud, because there are a lot of options. And aside from that, you also need to consider the pricing for the cloud storage and be aware about the costs that will incur in certain type of Azure data storage. And relational versus non-relational NoSQL. For example, if you're moving a structured database, a relational database into the cloud, and you know that in a few years you might need to create a feature that requires you to save unstructured data, for example, blobs and images and videos, then probably it's worth considering to redesign your data strategy or database into something else. So maybe you could make use of Azure Cosmos DB, which is a very powerful database that allows you to store different types of data. And also, don't move to the cloud with your old dummy data. Like sometimes when, for example, in that system that I worked on, I had to do a lot of data corrections and data cleanup because there were a lot of tests and dummy data that were left from many years ago. So don't bring that up, don't bring the scrap to the cloud. And lesson 8, security and privacy. It is also very important. For example, here in Europe, we have a GDPR policy, which protects the personal data of every person in Europe. So before you consider moving your data into an Azure SQL database, check first if your existing data has personal data that might cause GDPR policy violations. And then next is Azure. If you're not sure how Azure or your cloud provider works with GDPR or privacy information, then Azure has GDPR regulations for that and compliance for data protection. And lesson 9, identifying the right authentication or user identity services for your cloud system. So in a traditional on-premise system, we usually, in that system that I worked on at least, we use a traditional login with sessions. That was the old on-premise variant, but when you move to the cloud, there are a lot of options, especially now that everyone has Office 365 and also have Azure. So you need to choose the right user identity or authentication service for your system. So there's Azure Active Directory and Microsoft Graph and SSO. And lesson 10, next is seek best practices and learn from others. So if you're not sure which path is the correct, the right or the wrong path, then, and you lack expertise in your organization or team, then seek advice from others and find the cloud experts that you have in your area. Or if you can't find one in your area, find someone in your network and ask for help, and also contact your cloud provider that you're thinking to move to. And it's very important because succeeding slowly is better than failing fast. So this lesson is very good to have. And lesson 11, cost planning and pricing evaluation is also important upon moving to the cloud, which means that we need to make use of the resources that we have, for example, Azure, the cloud provider that we choose. So in Azure, there's the Azure pricing calculator that you don't need to even have the subscription yet. Before even signing up, you have the option to calculate how much this cloud services that you want to use would cost you. And there's also the TCO calculator in which you can do comparison between the on-premises costs as well as your probability of cost that you will have when you have your services in the cloud. And also there's also Azure Cloud Management. And lastly, but not the least, don't rush flying up to the cloud, because moving to the cloud is not easy and it takes time. You need a good cloud team, and you need the knowledge. So don't rush doing that, because if you rush, you will suffer the consequences that it might affect your organization or your business. And some good resources that I would like to share with all of you. I would like to share about a great resource of Microsoft, which is the Cloud Adaptation Framework for Azure, which is a good guide that are worth checking for. It helps you, it guides you through defining the strategy, the plan, being ready, how to adapt and migrate, how to innovate when you're done with that, governance and management. And also part of the cloud adaptation frameworks is the cloud migration motivations. So there are motivations and triggers for that. So please check on that. And also Azure Migrate, as well as the Smart tool. And also, lastly, I would like to share about, especially for architects and Azure developers, when you're planning your applications to the cloud, it is important to think of these top 10 design principles for Azure applications. Design for healing. This means that if you build an application, you need to build it that it will self-heal upon failure, and make things redundant. Also, is it's about it is about avoiding single points of failure and all this important things. So you can check out the details on the link that it is on the presentation. And what I really like about this top 10 is the design for evolution, because as a developer, we cannot just build something because we want to fix and solve the problem or build based on the requirements. We need to design and build a system that would last for a lifetime. I mean, that will last with the evolution of our digitalization. So it's really good things to consider and check it out. And to summarize, I shared about me a bit, and I shared about my cloud migration experience and some of the lessons that I learned, and things to consider when you migrate your old apps to the cloud, and some good resources to check out after this talk. And lastly, I would like to share this quote of Benjamin Franklin that by failing to prepare, you are preparing to fail. So take note of that when you do some planning for the cloud migration. And be cloud ready. And because of my experience, even though it was a kind of like a fiasco for me and it affected me personally, it was a great experience, and I learned a lot that I am here right now standing and sharing this lessons learned. And I'm also more motivated to inspire cloud to others. And I'm also one of the Azure heroes. So I really look forward to share more cloud to others. So if you have questions about my talk today or feedback, you can contact me using the contact information in the screen. And there's also a website of my company where I work for right now. And I would like to thank you so much for taking time to listen to me and my story, and I hope you learned something. Thank you.
I think Roel is still muted. We can't hear him at the moment.
Can you hear me?
I'm sorry, I was too engaged in the talk to unmute myself.
Oh.
No, I just wanted to say thanks a lot for this session. I think this is really valuable information for everybody listening to this who either is a cloud developer or wants to become a cloud developer.
Yes, I hope you learned something. It's from the heart, and it's a real life experience. And this is one of the major reasons why I'm really passionate to share cloud and be an Azure hero, because we need it. We all need it, and it's very important. And this is also the reason why I want to advocate gender diversity, because it is important. So I hope you learned, and also the viewers learned something.
I think everybody learned a whole lot, and I think Jorrit and I were riding along, and we wrote down a couple of questions we really would like to ask you.
Yeah, sure. If we have time before the next one, sure.
I have a few minutes.
I think we still have some time. Yeah. So the first one that kind of struck me in the heart, because I was in the same situation. So I was wondering, considering your experience on the project you told us about, what's your opinion on working as a sole developer?
My opinion, it was both actually a challenge. It wasn't easy working alone, because I'm a developer that can work independently and also like working in a team. And I wish I had a great team that were also as passionate as me, and bringing things like improving the system and move it up to the cloud. But it was both. The advantage is that I got to learn a lot about Azure, but the disadvantage is that I had to do a lot of job that to the point that I was stressed and it was too much that I had to quit the job. And the most of the major things that affected me, I had no problems working on the project alone. And I was very positive, but the thing that challenged me and was hard for me was the leadership. And I wish I had that support and a better team. But yeah, that's how it went. To some things some things in projects you cannot control, and all you can do is just do your best and learn from it.
Okay. Oh, that's
Yes.
great response. So, yeah, no, but it's great. And you mentioned that you lack the support. So after your break, you took a 1 month break. Nice picture of your dog, by the way.
Yes.
So how did that work out for you? Is there more support where you are at now?
Actually, I took a break, so I quit the job. But right after I took the break, I got a job offer, and I am very glad in my existing or current company right now, because I feel more collaboration, and I feel more appreciated in what I do. So I'm very glad for that, and they're very supportive in what I do. So I mean, I'm a person that's not shy, and I'm very transparent to share my personal experience, because I want to inspire others. And sometimes I can be shy, but sometimes it's good to just voice it out and tell the truth. There's nothing to hide.
Yeah, I think probably plenty of other developers have gone through similar things as you have, and
Yes.
it's always good while you're sharing this experience, they know they're not alone, right? And everybody makes these
Yes.
mistakes in the beginning. So
Yes.
you mentioned a couple of times in your 12 tips that you have to go and choose the right services for the right application, right?
Hmm.
I'm saying right a lot of times after one another. Um, do you have any good resources or tips on how to make those choices?
Um, Good questions. I think the number one resource is the Microsoft Azure documentation, and of course, if you're in the process of moving things or your applications to the cloud, then it's good to take advantage of the resources that I mentioned, the Cloud Adaptation Framework as a guide, and also there's the Microsoft assessment tool for that, for the migration. So Microsoft has a lot of, I'm pretty amazed that they have like a lot of resources for the users in supporting Azure migration. And I wish that I learned about that a long time ago when I was in that project, but I didn't get pretty involved with Azure and motivated to learn more about things, the deeper things in Azure, until I experienced this failure in the project. So now I'm like fired up and excited, and I'm excited to help other organization move to the cloud. So one of my like things, one of the careers role that I want to be is I want to be a cloud architect. So I want to code at the same time, help out with the architecture when they want to move to the cloud. So I'm excited.
Yeah, sounds like a great role. And well, you mentioned your contact details right at the end of your presentation, but I think we also mentioned that you've just started a YouTube channel. I didn't see it on the list. Where can we find it?
It is, it's pretty new. It was on the first part of my presentation.
Okay.
So it's a meetup. It's called Azure User Group Sundsvall. And it's also actually listed on my website, jonah_anderson.tech. So all stuff about me and the contact information is there. And I blog about Azure in some of my projects, personal projects. So those users or listeners that want to learn more, they can definitely visit my website or connect to LinkedIn. And I'm also, if there are women listening right now who wants to be inspired by me, so feel free to contact me and maybe we can help out each other, like mentorship.
Great tip. Well, I think we're out of time right now, but it was a great session. Thank you.
Thank you so much, and it's great to be here. Thank you for the opportunity, and wishing every listeners to have a great Easter holidays soon.
Yes. Same to you.
Thank you.
Okay, thank
Bye-bye.
you. Bye. So I guess that brings us to the end of this session and at the beginning of a new session. The next one, I think, will be from Dawood and Kati. I don't know if they're already backstage right now.
No, not yet. You're not
Okay.
expecting me probably, but they're not in there yet. So we're trying to reach them. So we'll probably postpone till like 10 minutes to 8 or something.
Okay, so 5-minute break for everyone to get a cup of coffee.
Yeah,
Stay
we'll
awake.
try to get them in the stream, and then we'll continue it then.
That's fine. We'll be right back then.